to another edition of the BFT Chat with me, Northern Aqua Hayford. Having a chat with us is the man who won the Businessman of the Year for 2015, and his company was also voted at the 2016 Ghana Economic Forum as the Business of the Year for 2015. The person speaking to us today is Mr. Ken Thompson. He is the CEO of the very company I just mentioned, which is Delex Finance and Leasing Company. We are grateful for your time, Mr. Ken Thompson. Okay, so, Mr. Thompson, we want to look at 2016. Most of us already do know that 2016 was quite a turbulent year when it comes to business, especially for those of you in the financial sector. Give us a reflection of 2016.
2016 for business was terrible. But let me start with Delex Finance. 3 years ago, we took a strategic decision to reduce our lending to the SME sector, and we focused on payroll lending. So payroll lending was where we lent to government, public servants. So that was what has really propelled the growth of this company. But in terms of businesses, I mean, where you live we have a situation where businesses with 3 members of staff are shedding staff. Then it means it's terrible because first, the government, who is the biggest spender, had no money to spend, and was not even paying for debts that it was not paying people for the debt, for the monies that he owed them. So business in 2016 was terrible, absolutely terrible. I mean, really, in 16 years, since I've been back from the UK, I haven't seen anything quite like this. I really haven't seen anything quite like this. It was really terrible, absolutely terrible.
I see. Now we've come into a new year, 2017, and if you describe 2016 as terrible, with a government or a country that has a GDP to deficit which is around 70%, where the fact that it's so difficult for us, do you think that 2017 there's any prospect for you, the businessman?
2017 could be better for several reasons. First, we have a new set of people that are managing the economy. And I don't think this country is necessarily poor. I think it's more to do with how we've managed our finances. So, and because most of the people that are private sector people, I'm sure they'll find some way to stimulate the economy. It's not going to be as bad, it's not going to be as good as we hope for, but I certainly hope that it won't be as bad as 2016. There's certain hard decisions that have been taken. For example, we can't subsidize utilities. I don't know how we're going to deal with that. But there's a certain wave of optimism. So people will be prepared to invest their money if they think that the government is taking the right initiatives and going the right way. So 2017 could be better than 2016, but it will be nowhere near what we want it to be.
With 2017 that you say could be better, we have an IMF program that is running, and we're described even at the moment as a country that falls within the heavily indebted countries, that is HIPC countries. But for the fact that we are a middle income, a small middle or whatever they want to call it, middle income country, we are not able to say we're going to HIPC because we have found ourselves there. So with an IMF program, yes, we've seen some inflation drop. Currently now, as of December, it came to 15.4. And then we are seeing the treasury bill rates also drop. Do you think that some economists have said, let's go review the IMF program? Should there be that? A second look at it? Is it even possible?
It's possible, but I don't know why we're going on about the IMF program. The IMF program was never meant to be a silver bullet. Let me explain. You earn 1,000 cedis. You spend 400 cedis on your workers, on your domestic staff. You spend another 300 cedis on your interest on your debt. You haven't paid school fees. You haven't bought petrol. You haven't done repairs and maintenance. You haven't done hospital. You haven't bought food. So you go to your friend and say, look, the way my debt situation is, I need time to reorganize myself. And your friend says, well, I can give you some money, but I've got to make sure that by the end of a certain period, you can pay me my money back. And you'll be able to, you'd have done the things that you said we're going to do. Now, you go to your friend a year later and says, well, I've got a new wife, so I want to renegotiate my terms. What are we talking about? The things that we have to do are simple. We either increase income, or we cut expenditure, or we do both. There's no middle way. But the issue is not the IMF program. The issue is how we manage our public finances. And if we are able to manage our finances properly, we should have no problem. And I think even with a new pair of hands, people that we do business with may look upon us more favorably and might do more business with us. So for me, the issue is not the IMF program. The issue is how we manage our public finances. That's it. And remember, last time I did a program about a year ago, February last year, when you see what was put in capacity building and when it was put in agric, it's ridiculous. And what's capacity building? Capacity building is business class travel all over the world, plus our allowances for government appointees and their extensions. So if we're able to manage our public finances better, we'll have enough money or some money to put in the productive sector. And then we've also got to energize the private sector. That's all we need to do. But I don't think it will be worse than last year. I mean, last year was terrible.
Someone will ask, or I want to ask you, do you think we have a safe pair of hands to manage the public finances with the fact that your own good friend, Ken Oforiatta, is now going to become the finance minister of this country, coming from the same fraternity that you find yourself?
You see, when you're employing somebody, and it's a very important position, you've got to look at the person's education, you've got to look at the person's achievements, you've got to look at the person's experience. And for me, Ken ticks all those boxes. So in terms of being able to manage the public finances, even if Ken went to work 3 days a week, Ken should be able to do it. And he has a track record.
When he's not an economist?
It's got nothing to do with being an economist. It's all he needs is somebody with common sense, somebody who can put the right team around them, and somebody who can take a decision. You know, I paraphrase something that Margaret Thatcher said. He says, if you want to be liked, you can't achieve anything because you can't take decisions. He doesn't need to be an economist. He's been, like I've said so many times, God invented economists to make astrologers look good. That's all it is. I mean, the man has a track record. I mean, he's going to be meeting people from all over the world. He's going to be meeting people in different disciplines. He knows how to hold a champagne flute. Those things matter. So for me, at least on paper, his ability to do it, I think is unquestionable. And if you ask me, I'll put my hand in fire and say, if Ken really wants to do it, he can do it. I mean, what's so scientific about managing the economy of Ghana? He doesn't need to be an economist. I mean, he has a track record, so I don't see what the issue is.
Now, fast forward, let's look at another ministry, one area that you have been talking about a lot, the agri sector. And I can recall 2015, 2016, all you have been saying is we got to go back to work and make sure that we revamp the agricultural sector, which of course is one of the mainstays of our economy. We have Dr. Ifri Akoto being appointed to that particular area. You think that, he's also one of the safe pair of hands that can turn the agri sector around? He's been the minority spokesperson on agric. We understand he's, as a person, is a farmer or is heavily into agric.
You see, if I'm going to go by what the MPP has said they've always stood for private enterprise, stood for a property-owning democracy, then he should be able to do it. I mean, really. I mean, I don't know much about him, but what's so scientific about setting targets and making sure the farmers have the seeds, they have extension workers are there to give them support, they have access to fertilizer, they have access to funds, they have access to a market. We introduce weights and measures, we standardize. What's so scientific about it? It needs somebody who understands the basic principles of business or understands basic principles of what success is like. And for somebody who has a doctorate, I don't know what the doctorate is in, but surely, I mean, he must have gone through a certain process. So I don't see why he shouldn't be able to do it. I mean, I don't see why he shouldn't be able to do it.
What exactly do you want to see in the agri sector done in the first year?
Now we're in the planting season, 1st to March. So straight off, they should start thinking of giving seeds. They start thinking of how they're going to get fertilizer to the farmers. They're going to start to think of how they're going to put extension workers there. And there are two crops. I mean, the two crops that people have talked about and that we haven't done anything about is yam and cassava. To start thinking how we can promote those crops. Because did you know that Ghana is the largest exporter of yam? And yam will grow in more districts in this country than cocoa. So there's so many basic things we have to do. And if we think we don't know how to do it, I have a solution. If you go next door to Ivory Coast, just say, guys, how did you do it? And just copy. How difficult is copying? There's nothing we want to do in this country that has not been done before. Copy. What's your problem? How difficult can copying be? Just copy. How difficult can copying be?
It makes me remember what I was told that Ouattara once told his ministers who were going for a conference. He said, when you go there, the Ghanaians love to talk a lot.
Yeah.
So just take your pen and paper, write everything down, come let's implement it and show them how it's done.
You see, there's nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing we want to do that's not been done before. There's absolutely nothing. I mean, the Chinese transformed the economy in less than 20 years. The South Koreans have done it. Indonesians have done it. Thailand has done it. I mean, there's so many countries. Malaysia has done it. All you go and do is say, this is how you did it, copy. How difficult can copying be? Just copy. And if you think you can't afford, because I'm advocating against our ministers flying business class because it's not necessary, because even the heads of missions in a lot of the institutions that we deal with, they don't fly business class. If your flight is less than 7 hours, go into economy. We can't afford it. We're broke. Go next door to Ivory Coast, and I'll pay for the plane fare. Go and copy. Just say, how do you do it? Copy. Set yourself. It's so simple. I mean, what's so difficult about copying? Just go and copy.
Taxes, which has been one of the main things that you, the business or private sector, have complained so much about, that has been killing and is the main reason why we've seen a lot of businesses collapse over the period. The NPP says, you know what, we're going to take away a lot of the taxes. Financial sector tax, VAT, 17.5, we're taking it off. We're going to take off the domestic aviation VAT, which was also slammed on them. A lot of these taxes, the import levy, all these ones, they're looking at scrapping them. But someone would also argue that, listen, with the kind of economy that we have now, you need money to be able to, input into the infrastructure development and the kind of projects that you want to do. Why would you want to take away the taxes?
I don't think businesses collapse because necessarily of the taxes was an issue, but businesses collapse because there was no business. But you see, the issue is not, apart from the fact that it would help if they took off the taxes, the issue is they've got to find a way to expand the tax net. And we've talked about expanding the tax net, but nobody's done anything. I mean, I have a solution. I have one solution. All you have to do is say, okay, if you say you want to register a vehicle that is over 10,000 cedis, let's say 10,000 cedis, show a tax clearance certificate. I can assure you the tax revenue of this country will double. How difficult is that to implement? There's another tax that they don't talk about, and the politicians don't talk about it. If you want to register a property, you're supposed to pay tax. You're supposed to show a tax clearance certificate. Ask the politicians, and when you meet Ken, ask him, why is that not being implemented? It should be implemented. The issue is not that we don't have money. The issue is that the tax net is too narrow. And because we refuse to use the ideas that we have to expand the net, the 4 or 5 people that we can see, we continue to tax them. So really, if they expand the net, it's not a problem. It's a non-issue. Absolute non-issue.
So taking off those taxes, you think is the best thing to do?
You see, it's a start. But taking off tax in itself, in isolation, it doesn't achieve much. It must be accompanied by policies and programs to get the private sector to invest in the productive sector. And I keep on saying the productive sector, where we should put the private sector, we should get the private sector going, is agriculture. The same way we've incentivized people to do government contracts, the same way we've incentivized people to do shops, the same way we should create incentives for people to put money into agriculture. It's as simple as that. Nobody needs money from the government. You see, and nobody creates wealth if you can't protect wealth. When people put their money in ventures and they lose it, not because they did something wrong, because of government policy, nobody will create the wealth. So create incentives for people to put their money in agric, and it will go there. And that will revive your economy. So even if you moved to a zero rate of tax tomorrow, what difference does it make?
Very finally, before I leave you, I mean, from where you sit, do you think that the current administration, with the kind of appointments that we are seeing, have what it takes to bring that prosperity, create that jobs, the enabling environment that we Ghanaians are craving for, especially the youth?
You see, I have to answer this question in a year's time. But what I would say is that at least on paper, they should be able to do it. On paper, they should be able to do it. Whether that translates to actually being able to do it are two different things. But on paper, they should. Why shouldn't they be able to do it? What's so scientific about it? And there's nothing that we will do that's not been done before. So if they know how to copy, and most people know how to copy, we don't have a problem. We have no problem. Just copy. That's all they have to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ken Thompson.
Thank you.
We're so grateful. That's been another edition of the B&FT Chat with me, Norman Akwaheford. I've been speaking to Kenneth Kwamina Thompson, the CEO of Delex Finance. You can get this particular episode and all others on our YouTube. That is Business and Financial Times. And then also we can visit our Facebook page, which is Business and Financial Times, and then get this episode. But let me just inform you that if you are looking for business news, data, anything, you can find it on the website, which is the BFTonline.com. Goodbye.